الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Continuing our lessons on Umdatul Fiqh of Imam Ibn Qudaamah rahimahullah. Last week we were on issue 924 in the chapter of Siyam Tatawwu'i, the voluntary fasts. And here the Shaykh was talking about different days in which is recommended for someone to fast. And now he's going to move towards, at the end of the chapter, the days which is prohibited. But he says in issue 924, وَالصَّائِمُ الْمُتَطَوِّعُ أَمِيرُ نَفْسِهِ إِنْ شَاءَ صَامَ وَإِنْ شَاءَ أَفْطَرَ وَلَا قَضَاءَ عَلَيْهِ. That the one who is fasting on voluntary fast is the Amir. He is the one in control of his own self. If he so wishes to fast and continue his fast, let him do so. And if he wishes to break his fast, then he also is allowed to do so. And so what the author is telling us here is that the person who is fasting a voluntary fast can break their fast anytime. Again, is it recommended to do so? Scholars, they say that it depends on if there's a need versus if there's no need. For example, someone is invited to eat or intends a walima or something like this. Can they break their fast? If it's a voluntary fast, they say yes, they can break their fast. And again, since they're the Amir of their own self, this comes in one version of the hadith, that the person who's fasting voluntary fast is the Amir of his own self. He's in control of his own self. So he can break his fast or he can continue it. And the scholars obviously say that if he continues it, this is better, but if he breaks it, the Shaykh says, وَلَا قَضَى عَلَيْهِ, there's no qada over him, and he doesn't have to make it up because he's the one who started it. And contrast this then for somebody who's fasting obligatory fast. Can he or she break their fast? The ulama, they differed. Right? And this is important because a lot of the scholars, when they talk about it, most of them, they narrate that it's not allowed to break an obligatory fast. But it's not so easy to say that. There is a difference of opinion. And so before going there, the general idea of keeping the fast is to preserve your good deeds. When you start something good in Islam, you don't want to break it. وَلَا تُبْطِلُوا أَعْمَالَكُمْ, Allah says. Don't nullify or ruin your good deeds. So the idea is, if you start something good, finish it. And so this is why they generally recommend the person to do so. When it comes to the voluntary fast, though, since there's a hadith, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned this, and also he did it himself. In one hadith Muslim, he woke up in the morning, he didn't eat anything, he started a nafil fast, a voluntary fast, and then when some food was brought, he broke it. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did that, so when they asked him about it, he said that today I woke up fasting, but when the food came, he ate it. And showing that the person who's voluntary fasting is in charge of his own self. He can break his fast. But now when it comes to the obligatory, and generally speaking, the obligatory fast, the person cannot break their fast according to many scholars. But the difference of opinion is there. So the viewpoints of the ulama in general is as followings. They say that the Hanafi and the Malikiyya, that it's not allowed for the person who's fasting obligatory fast to break their fast. Right? They're not allowed. This is a person who's making up Ramadan, for example. We're talking about that kind of person. So they say that the Hanafi and Malikiyya said they can't if they're fasting an obligatory fast, and they're also the opinion you can't break a voluntary fast. Right? So the Hanafi and Malikiyya, you can't break any fast you start. Of course, we just said that's not the most correct opinion. So the Hanabila and the Shafi'iyya on the other side, they said you can break a voluntary fast, but you can't break an obligatory fast. But then some of the Shafi'iyya argue that you can break either of them, both of them. And the argument is that the person who started an obligatory, a voluntary fast, we said he's Amir of his own self. But a person who started to do the qada of Ramadan, the time for Ramadan again to make up the fast is not restricted. It's spacious. Again, we're noticing this trend. The ulama, whenever they're mentioning someone can do this and that, they go back to the difference of opinion in Usul Fiqh. Ibadat in Usul Fiqh, we learn that ibadat are of types. Right? And ibadat also have time. Some of them have time, and some of them the time is restricted, and some of the time is spacious. So if the waqt is dayiq, a specific time which is restricted, is different than ibadah, which time is muwassa', it's spacious. So what does that mean? For salah, for example, the time is spacious. You have at the beginning of the salah time entering to pray until the end. Obviously, it's better to pray in the earlier time, but you have all that time. When it comes to making up the Ramadan fast, when do you have to make it up? When's the deadline? Before next Ramadan. It's not today. So if you started that day and you want to break it because you were invited to a wedding, you want to do it tomorrow, then the waqt for breaking up the Qada Ramadan, there's no one can probably prevent you from that. And so the argument is that you can just make it up tomorrow. But if you're in a situation where you end up restricting your time, you delay it all the way to Sha'ban, unless someone invited you to a wedding, what are you going to do now? Well, how many days you have? That's the question. You have enough days to do both? The answer is no, you can't break that fast. And the answer is yes, then you can break it up and make it. So example, someone has 20 days owing, and it's already 10 days past of Sha'ban, he has to literally fast from this tomorrow until the end of. He can break his fast, because his time now has become restricted, not spacious. And this opinion, some of the Shafi'iyya is correct, because the argument is strong, because it's based on the foundation that there's no proof to say otherwise. The argument of the ulama, وَلَا تُبْطِلُوا أَعْمَالَكُمْ, is not dalil that's sarih. This ayah is general, and it has to do with different things. It could be due with those who break their good deeds through shirk or riyah, or from, for example, giving sadaqah and then reminding people. There's different ways to break your good deeds. So it's not restricted to fasting. Hence, the conclusion would be if somebody has started a qada fast, a fard fast, if there's an excuse to break it, they're allowed to. If there's no, you could say dislike to do so. Again, but if you take the other view, the Shafi'i Maliki view, it's haram to do so. So the reason why that's important is that people ask this all the time when they're doing a fast. Someone invited you, what should I do? Volunteer fast? Your choice. If it's a fard fast, then group 1 says you can't, the group 2 says you can. And we're saying that the second view, Allahu A'lam, is stronger. You can break it because you have an excuse. But if there's no excuse, just like you don't feel like continuing, like you got hungry or something, then they will say it's disliked, not haram. Wallahu ta'ala ala wa alam. And so the idea behind this is that the person who's fasting, he has to know these rulings and what position they hold. Because if they're holding a position, they have to act upon it in consistency. Problem is that imagine you don't know these things, you're going to break and start your fast all the time, however you want. That's not good. That's important to know this. طيب, the author now, he mentions issue 925, وَكَذَلِكَ سَائِرُ التَّطَوُّعِ. Likewise, all voluntary good deeds, you're allowed to break them if you started them. Issue 926, إِلَّا الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةِ, except for Hajj and Umrah. فَإِنَّهُ يَجِبُ إِتْمَامُهُمَا وَقَضَاءُ مَا أَفْسَدَ مِنْهُمَا. So the only exception to the rule of breaking voluntary deeds, you started them, is Hajj or Umrah. Hajj or Umrah, which is voluntary, you cannot break it. Once you start, you have to continue. And the ulama, they use this proof, فَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, and complete your Hajj and Umrah for Allah's sake. So therefore, someone started voluntary Umrah, khalas, you have to keep going. I mean, most likely someone will not break it anyways, because you spend so much money and effort to get to Mecca. Right? So most of us were not in that situation. But let's say someone is doing it, he did it a number of times, he just wants to stop. They say, no, you have to keep going. And the idea is that the ayah is one of the proofs also the ulama use to show that the original ruling of Hajj or Umrah is wujub. So it's wajib to do it once in your lifetime, Hajj wal Umrah. Umrah is also wajib ala sahih al-qawl. Sahih al-qawl al-ulama, right? Aqwal al-ulama, the most correct view because of this ayah. So if whoever is able, obviously, so let's say you never made it, if you're able to, you should go for Umrah. If you can't, some people what they do when they do the Hajj tamattu', they do Umrah first there. The idea behind this ayah is that you have to continue it. So here we learned that that's the only exception. So let's say somebody started a voluntary salah. Can they break it? Someone started nafil and they want to break the nafil. They can, because nafil salah is voluntary, you're allowed to. A fard salah is different. Again, it goes back to udhr. So usually, if you start a fard salah, you can't just break it. But what will be an udhr to break the fard salah? What will be an excuse? Emergency happens, something happens, you have to get out the salah. Well, how about when someone starts a fard salah, then he sees jama'ah just started. He started your fard, and he says, hey, there's a jama'ah over there. Can you break it and join the jama'ah? You can, inshallah. It's allowed. That's allowed. To break yours fard now, which is by yourself, and join that jama'ah which is praying fard. You're allowed to. That's an udhr that can be done. Because you see them. But if obviously if you started And there's no other excuse, you keep going. Because the general rule is, scholars usually mention that whatever you started, which is fard, cannot be broken except by that which is fard. Right? So a wajib or fard can only be broken by wajib or fard. So the idea is, if you want to join that, that's a wajib. Also, you're praying this salah, you want to join that salah, then some of them, the ulama say, yes, you can. But the general idea is only Hajj Umrah is exempted for the voluntary deeds. And so, and if you miss them, you have to make it up. So if someone did that, let's say he broke his he broke his Umrah, he'll have to make it up. He has to do qada as well. And so now the Shaykh moves into a time where it's prohibited to fast. He says, issue 927, وَنَهَى النَّبِيُّ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ عَنْ صَوْمِ يَوْمَيْنِ يَوْمِ الْفِطْرِ وَيَوْمِ النَّحْرِ. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited fasting 2 days, the day of Fitr and the day of Nahar. Hence, the fasting of 2 Eids is prohibited. And there's going to be an exception, we'll see. And the reason why, the scholars, they mentioned the hikmah behind that is that those are the days that we are going to enjoy by eating and drinking. And that's one of the intentions behind the day of Eid. It's a celebration of remembering Allah and enjoying the halal drink and eat and food and visiting family and likes, all of this. So these kinds of days you shouldn't be fasting. And extended to that is the day of Jumu'ah. The prohibition that comes for fasting Jumu'ah by itself, obviously it's disliked to fast Jumu'ah by itself, unless you do the day before or after. But the idea behind the same thing, Yawm Jumu'ah is Eid, when A'yad al-Din, right? So you're not supposed to fast. لا تجعلوا يوم عيدكم يوم صومكم. Come one hadith says, don't make day of your Eid day of fast. So that's where this dislike is there. Because Jumu'ah, people are going to get together. فَإِذَا قُلَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. The Sahaba, they did tafsir. It means go visit your friends and family. Right? If you're not going to work, obviously. Right? You go visit your friends and family. And what do? The Sahaba used to visit one another to eat. And visit one another and just to meet. So the idea is, this is the day you're going to eat. So that's one of the hikmahs. Second hikmah, Adha comes at the time of slaughter. Yawm al-Fitr comes at the time of Ramadan ending. When you fast Ramadan, the day difference between Ramadan starting and ending is what? It's Eid. The fact that you could break your fast the next day. The difference between Ramadan starting and stopping, the starting of Ramadan. How do you know Ramadan started? The day before you were eating, today you're not in the morning. So they say this is the harim. These are the close proximity or the time periods where it's right next to, connected to the act of worship. The day before, are you supposed to fast Yom al-Shak the day before, or the day where it could be Eid, Ramadan? It's not allowed. So the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prohibited for us to fast Yom or Yawmain before Eid, 1 or 2 days before Eid. 1 or 2 days before Ramadan. And then also we find that it's prohibited to fast Eid. See that? These are the beginning and endings. So when it's close to Ramadan starting, don't start fasting, wait for it to come in. When it ends, we know it's called Yawm al-Fitr because you broke the fast, Yawm al-Fitr, day of breaking the fast. So, nobody really fasts. I don't know if anyone fasts the day of Eid, right? So, but the point is, if someone was trying to do a qada, let's say someone says, I'm going to start my qada today, we will say it is prohibited. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam prohibited that. So the harim concept is very important. Harimul a'yad. It's an important concept, brothers and sisters, to pay attention to, because as you can see, the rulings are extending before and after. Now take this to the celebrations which are not Islamic, and we talked about that before. Some people today say, I'm going to celebrate some non-Muslim celebration the day before it. Is that haram? Yeah. Someone says, I'm going to my birthday the day before my birthday. So it doesn't count, right? Yeah, how are we going to answer that person? They say, that's the harim, the Eid, it counts. Day before, day after, it's still a birthday, right? So Shaykh Islam mentions a very good principle. The harim, the close proximity of the festivities take the same ruling. Okay, very important fact that some people come tell you, well, today is not my birthday, it was yesterday. So what you did, you backed it up one day, you put it forward one day, it's still the same concept. But this is the awam, what they do. So when we talk to them, the days before and after, around the act of festivity, take the same ruling. Iqtida Sirat Mustaqim, Shaykh Islam talks about that. And also, we ask them, why are you doing that day? And that's also the giveaway. You notice it, right? They'll say, oh, today is not my birthday, but he's still doing something special. What's going on here? They say, oh, it's just... And when you say, we ask them, it's because of the birthday. So we say, look, any act of worship or any actual festivity which is based on something where you're commemorating the time, that's the Eid. So it's a fa'idah to know this concept because you find this doubt often. I'm sure we met people say this. It's not the same. It was the day after. Same thing. طيب, now that it's prohibited, the ulama, they mention Adha for the time of slaughter, so you shouldn't be, it's recommended obviously to slaughter. And if you can't, still it's recommended, right? So it's a what must that you break the fast that day. Days the shriq is not for fasting. But there's an exception. The Shaykh says, an exception is here, 927. Issue 927, وَنَهَا النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى 928. وَنَهَا عَنْ صَوْمِ الْأَيَّامِ التَّشْرِيقِ. Likewise, the days of Tashriq have been prohibited to fast. And so that means that the days of Tashriq are also a'yad, the days of festivities. You can't fast them. أيام التشريق أيام أكل والشرب ذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى. That the days of Tashriq are days of eating, drinking, remembering Allah. But Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam allowed one person, issue 929, إلا, he said, except for أنه أرخص في صومها للمتمتع إذا لم يجد الهدي. The only person who's allowed to is a person who's doing Hajj al-Tamattu'. He's doing the Hajj al-Tamattu', so he's doing the Hajj in which he proceeded with Umrah. And this person cannot find a hadi, a sacrificial animal. So that person then, in place of not finding a sacrificial animal, is going to fast 3 days in Hajj and 7 when they get back home. So the scholar says the exception to that person, he can do it even days Tashriq, he's allowed to do it. So let's explain the issue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ تَمَتَّعَ بِالْعُمْرَةِ الْحَجِّ فَمَا اسْتَيْسَرَ مِنْ هَدِي. Whoever is going to follow the Hajj with the Umrah, follow the Umrah with the Hajj. So you do Umrah first, then you get out of state Ihram, then go back in the Ihram to go for Hajj. Then that person should have the hadi, a sacrificial animal. If they can't do so, فَصِيَامُ ثَلَاثَ أَيَّامٍ فِي الْحَجِّ. 3 days in Hajj you fast, وَسَبْعَةٍ إِذَا رَجَعْتُمْ. 7 when you come back home. These 3 days you're fasting, in place of the missing sacrificial animal you didn't have, that 3 days, can you do a day of Tashriq? That's the question. Can I do those 3 days as the 3 days of Tashriq, or can I have to do them before that? And the ulama said that yes, it's allowed, because this person has been exempted by the hadith Aisha wa Ibn Umar. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said it is not permitted. Hadith Bukhari, Aisha and Ibn Umar narrate, لم يرخص في أيام التشريق. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did not permit in days of Tashriq and yusumna, that we fast إلا لمن لم يجد هدي, except for the one who couldn't find a sacrificial animal for Hajj. So the scholars then discussed and debated, okay, if this person is supposed to do 3 days, when does he start the 3 days? So they say, let's say someone's going for Hajj, he's doing Hajj Tamattu', he doesn't have a sacrificial animal. He does the Umrah first, right? So what they do, they say, as soon as he puts on his Ihram for the Umrah, he's going to fast from that point. 1, 2, 3. So he's going to fast from the beginning of the Umrah. But now, let's say somebody who didn't do that, and he kept going. He finished his Hajj now, time for slaughter, he still has no animal. Now, can he do it? Then the difference of opinion came. Some of the scholars, they say, no, he can't, because that's not allowed. That you're not allowed to fast Ayyam al-Tashriq at all. And this is the view of Abu Hanifa. No one can fast the day of Tashriq. But the majority of ulama say, no, it's exempted for that person. Everyone else can't. And to help explain it, imagine the person who's supposed to fast for 2 days, thought he's going to buy a sacrificial animal on the day of Nahr. Then, on the day of Nahr, he couldn't buy one. He can't afford it. Or he lost his money. Right? Common experience, right? You go to Hajj Umrah, you get robbed. Allah forgive the Muslims. Someone robbed you or something happened. We'll say lost, but we don't want to have su'ud on Muslims. You lost your money. Right? It happens. So you're going to buy a sacrificial animal. That's what you're saying that. Then the day to get it, I have no money. So now I have to fast. Can I fast from that day? That's the debate. Some ulama say clearly the person has to fast. He didn't even think he's going to be in the situation. So he's allowed to fast at Ayyam al-Tashriq because he has an excuse. Otherwise, if he didn't know in the beginning, he would have started when he started his Umrah, but he didn't know that. So it shows the difference that at the end of the day, that's the only person who's exempt. As for everybody else, they have to eat and drink on the day of Tashriq. And days of Tashriq are days of slaughter and drying the meat and eating the meat. So why is it called Ayyam al-Tashriq? Those are the days they dry the meat and the skin after they slaughtered. And so also Yom Ru'us, the day where they have the heads. Ahl Mecca, they're known for eating the skull, not the skull, the meat inside the head, the brain, all of this stuff. You can buy it there. Cut it up. They I don't know. They chop it up, they put it together, and they eat it like that. It's a specialty. Yom Ru'us, that's the day of the heads. Some of us are probably we're wondering what's going on here, right? That's their specialty. So, in any case, because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam once when they talk about Tashriq, and he mentioned, what day is it today? And he mentioned the day of heads. The day of heads, and they were going to get the meat out of the head. In any case, so this person's exempt. 9:30 now, the Shaykh talks about Laylatul Qadr, even though it's not connected to Siyam, but it's there. He says, وَلَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ فِي الْوِتْرِ مِنَ عَشْرِ أَوَاخِرِ مِنْ رَمَضَانِ. Laylatul Qadr is with the odd nights of the last 10 nights of Ramadan. And so the Shaykh didn't explain it, he didn't get in details. And to quickly summarize the issue, the ulama differed on this topic, as we know, with a great differing. And the difference of opinion obviously comes from the fact that there's so many texts and also so much ijtihadat the ulama did to find out تحديد وقت Laylatul Qadr. They tried to determine the time of Laylatul Qadr because of the virtue of it. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ. When this ayat came down, the Sahaba, they know the value of this day, so they're looking for it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep it hidden for a hikmah. The kitman of Laylatul Qadr, the hiddenness of Laylatul Qadr, is for the greater wisdom that we make ijtihad all the 10 nights. So the ulama, due to this, they say that the Nabi Sallallahu forgot, and Allah made him to forget for this greater purpose. Otherwise, he was going to tell us. But also, we notice that the scholars say that if we were to know, then you find what we find today, where people they pick one day and say that's it. Jumhur ulama, majority say the 727 night is most likely, wallahu ta'ala a'lam wa a'lam, most likely to be Laylatul Qadr. But the wording is most likely. No one says bi'aynihi, yani it is. And one problem, the awam, when they heard 27, that's it. Right? They just sleep there for the whole Ramadan, 27, Bismillah. That's it. If you get a 27, you got everything. And this problem is that they didn't realize that the ulama who said this, which is majority, they didn't negate the other opinions, which are also strong. So what are the opinions about that Laylatul Qadr? Well, the scholars, they have many. Some say 21st, some say 23rd, some they say 27th, some say that it moves every night. And so from the viewpoints that are there, the two strongest are those two. That either 27th most likely, or every night, every year it moves throughout the odd 10 nights. And this is also why the views that some of our scholars they hold, and Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, he mentions himself, until Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah even held the view that it's possible to be even on odd nights. Again, using the hadith, some of the hadith where it says, إِلْتَمِسُوهَا فِي تَاسِعَ تَبْقَى, when the 9 nights are remaining. So counting backwards, again, there's a lot of different ways they looked at it. But the point is that all of those ijtihadat are valid. A person, therefore, he makes his best effort to all the odd nights they're awake. And they try all the nights they're awake, but all the odd nights specifically, they make extra effort to ensure that they're doing more and more, because it could be any one of them. And the ulama also talk about what does it mean ihya Laylatul Qadr? What does it mean to be alive and awake during that night? That which Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Sahaba used to do. So we're not allowed to make new things that they didn't do. Today someone says Laylatul Qadr, so everything counts times 83 and or whatever they're saying today. It's not true. It's not true. So some people, they start making up new things. Laylatul Qadr. No, they're still bid'ah. You can't just make up something that Laylatul Qadr is going to get. No, you have to do what they used to do. What did the Prophet do? Fast. He prayed all night. He stayed up all night, first of all, week. He prayed all or most of the night. And what else did he do? Read Quran and dua. Those that we have. Reading the Quran, in the Salah. And some scholars say if you can't, you can read it by itself. Making dua. Hayd Aisha. What's the dua? Allahumma إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني. So this dua, and then praying tahajjud tarawih. So those are what's been reported. As for adding extra things, that we're not allowed to do that. So for example, some they encourage the sadaqah, and some they do other things. We say again, what's reported, we should stick to it, because this is the sunnah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The last point the ulama mentioned this angle, just to be mindful of, that the alamat Laylatul Qadr that exist and are being reported are to help us to figure out what night it could possibly be. But these are all again based on, right? These are supposed to give you glad tidings. So for example, how the sun rises the next day, all that's supposed to encourage you to know that inshallah perhaps it was Laylatul Qadr. As some ulama differ on other signs, whether it's going to be a good temperature, not too hot, not too cold. Some scholars authenticate the hadith, some weaken it, some they differ. So but the end of the day, scholars say all of these are signs that we hope from it that it was Laylatul Qadr, not that we go and we report it to others in order to make them feel bad. This is what's happened today. I saw Laylatul Qadr, you didn't see it, they missed it. And that person doesn't know what Laylatul Qadr sign he was looking for. And this happens a lot. You find people debating this. All of this is not correct. Scholars say if someone, for example, saw a sign and believed it's a sign, it makes him feel good about the effort he did. But he didn't see it, doesn't mean he didn't count what he did. So that's a point to also mention. And all of this is just to add to the point that the signs are all there just to give us that kind of assurance, not to guarantee that it was Laylatul Qadr. In any case, the difference of opinion in this topic is bigger than the chapter the Shaykh mentioned. So inshallah, we will stop with that. Next week, we'll cover the Bab al-I'tikaf. Right? And inshallah, then after that, I believe the Shaykh will move into the Kitab al-Hajj, right? Which will be inshallah the last one we hope to cover in this classes, bidnillah ta'ala, which will be end ibadat, bidnillah ta'ala. If anyone has any questions, inshallah, we'll take them. Yes. Yeah, that's correct. That's what they mentioned. So scholars from Shafi'i who say you can break your fast, even if it's a qada Ramadan, they say that you making up your day is based on what you started, but since you have more time to make it up, you're not restricted. So the argument is saying that you can't break the good deeds without tubtul a'malakum is not the clear evidence. That's for generality. It's not specific to this. And it's the same thing we mentioned last week about the person who wants to do the 6 days of Shawwal, and before doing that, he didn't finish his Ramadan. So the same argument. Making up Ramadan is waqt is muwassa', is spacious. So you don't have to limit it. So here we say that this argument is important. The scholars any group of scholars who argue that the person who should not do that, they're arguing from the angle that when you start a good deed, you can't break it, especially fard, except with the fard. And they also argue from the angle that the person who wants to do the 6 days of Shawwal, then it's not allowed for the person who started it or who hasn't done it based on the hadith wording, but also the fact that the Ramadan, you started a fard. But we say that, well, this is true, since the fard has spacious timing, you're open to it. And again, but it's not obviously something recommended or comes into conversation except for someone who has a lot of days to make up. This is when it comes into handy. For example, someone wants to do 6 days of Shawwal and he has only 6 days to make up. You do the 6 days of Ramadan first, then the 6 days of Shawwal. It's easy. But I'm talking about, for example, someone has 20, 25 days. Or someone who traveled the whole month of Ramadan, for example, or most of it, or a sister who missed the whole Ramadan. See, then the conversation will be, then what can we do? Because they say that Shawwal will end, and this one's timing isn't. So the one whose timing is limited goes over the one's timing is spacious. So hopefully that makes sense, yeah. So is it good to not give sadaqah except in Ramadan? So how do we know we're going to make it to Ramadan? Okay, no, subhanAllah. Then the person will die and all his money goes to someone who won't give sadaqah. So that's why what happens. So we tell people, you can't be doing that. Maybe it's not someone generous the whole year, right? Not just Ramadan. So we missed the point. He was the more generous, not he was only generous. So I think we have to explain to the people, we can't be doing that. Give sadaqah all the time. Maybe Allah will allow us to reach Ramadan because of it. Question says, this is what if a person who didn't make up their fast before next Ramadan for a couple of years, but they do plan to make up their fasts? So a person who missed many fasts in the past, and they know how many they did roughly, then they make it up starting now, right? Then they keep going slowly but surely. If they can't make it all of them up before the Ramadan comes, then they do the Ramadan that comes, then they continue afterwards. And they make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making that up. But there's no kafara, there's nothing beyond just making it up. That's it. We said the person who missed a fast for breastfeeding or nursing, or a sister who was pregnant, or what, all in the fall into the chapter of Marid. So the one who was sick, that's it. They just make up their days. Yeah, of course, yeah. So that we said that the person who, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, one time he woke up in the day and there was nothing to eat and he started fasting. So this will be what we called last week, we said this is Sawm al-Nafl, mutlaq, unrestricted voluntary fast. So this one, the condition is that you didn't eat anything. And number two, you can start in the middle of the day. Some scholars say even till the end, before this, even 1 hour before Maghrib. But the idea is if someone knows that he's doesn't to eat or he wants to start, then he can start. Many of the ulama say up until the duha time. Some of them say that that's zawal time. After zawal, then it's too late. What seems to be correct, it's any time, provided he did not eat anything. But some people, what happens, they eat the breakfast and they say, I want to fast Ramadan. No, it's too late, brother. They're going to get another one, right? So the problem is that's the condition. So you can delay it, even till Asr even. But the person, once he knows that he's not going to eat anything, he should make the intention. Because we said before, the qa'idah that there's ease in nawafil, then more than there isn't in the fara'id. A question from the sisters ask, what about a baby who wakes up and a person breaks their fard salah in fear the baby will be fall off the bed? That is allowed. If a mother has to break the salah for emergency for a child, it's allowed. Any emergency, someone can break the salah. Like something's a fire in the house. Even Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah one fatwa, he said if somebody he needs to get a specific package or something that's going to come to the house and the person downstairs is ringing on the doorbell and he can't get out, so you have to break the salah because he needs to get this package. It's very important, and it can be done because it's darur in that situation. So we're talking when there's a necessity. Otherwise, if there's no need, you don't break the salah and you keep going. So whenever there's a necessity or something high need, you can do so, and then you restart your salah because that would be something where it's maslahah. Otherwise, you keep going. Sister says, is it permissible to pray with the niqab on? We said the ulama, they mentioned it's makruh for a sister to pray with niqab in public, when she's praying amongst her sisters in the masjid, the sister section. If it's a place where there's only sisters and it's blocked, if it's a general place where there's no barrier or there's where men can see her, then she keeps the niqab on. And the ulama say because in that case, and she's wearing niqab because there's non-mahram men, that's allowed then. But otherwise, covering praying salah with niqab is makruh. When she's with the women or she's by herself. Question says, is it permissible to combine the intention of fasting such as the 6 days of Shawwal with making up the fast of Ramadan? And the answer is no. You cannot combine the two because the fast of Ramadan has one niyyah and the fast of Shawwal has a different niyyah, and both are mu'ayyan. Both are specific. So we know we can't combine a mu'ayyan, specific act of worship, with another mu'ayyan. So what's the intention of Ramadan? Qada al-wajib wa fard. And the 6 days of Shawwal is to get the fadail. You can't do fard like that, fard in the high recommendation. The only time you can combine between something is between the mutlaq and the mu'ayyan, a general and a specific. So for example, fasting Monday is general. Any fast on Monday counts as fasting Monday. Because the fast on Monday is general, unrestricted fast. So for example, someone says, I'm going to fast Monday and I'm going to do Qada Ramadan. That one you get it. So this we mentioned before, the tadakhul, entering into the things. Anyone has a question? Yes? Yes, someone who has terminal illness or they cannot fast and they've been ruled by a doctor that they're unable to fast or it's unhealthy for them to fast, then they will feed a person every day, or they could do it at the end of the month, right? So they have a choice, but they don't do before. So for example, an old person is not going to fast Ramadan because he's too old. He's very weak. He will not do the feeding at the beginning because you're putting now the expiation or the here in front of the sabab. So you either do daily or you do at the end. And most people, they do at the end. Towards the end of Ramadan, they calculate how much and they send it to a place, or they feed the poor all one time. That's the best. Yes. So last week you said that Mondays and Thursday, both of them were reported. Monday is authentic without doubt. Some scholars differ on a Thursday, as the Hayl and the Sunan. But what seems to be correct, we said that ulama, many of them, like Shaykh Muqbil and Shaykh Al-Albani, authenticate that hadith. But some of the Ahlul Ilm, they say it's weak. So they say that the reward for Mondays, tablets, or Thursday, it's disputable. But because we said at the end of the day, we have the hadith of 3 fasts. Generally, Rasul used to fast 3 days every month, and also the many reports of hadith, inshallah, it is authentic hadith. But if you heard a Shaykh saying it's weak, then that's the reason why he said he might mention Monday without the Thursday. Because the Thursday comes in separate hadith, the Monday one comes in 2 hadith, more than 1 hadith. Question says, what if there's a cameras in the masajid and the woman wants to wear the niqab? So these kind of situations, these are contemporary issues. In the reality is that this needs to go back to the ulama. As far as a direct answer, maybe the Shaykh knows better, I don't know. Allahu A'lam. Maybe this one we look into it. Because the issue of the camera in general is how much is it being watched and directly or not. But we'll maybe look into that one. Allahu A'lam. Any other one? Quick questions? Yes. To fast Jum'ah, Jumhur ulama says disliked. It's not haram. So you have to do a day before or day after out of recommendation. But if someone fasts every day, so every other day, and lands on it, no problem. But let's say someone just said, today I feel like I want to fast Jum'ah, it's the only day I'm off. It's allowed. But the scholars say disliked because it's not the day you should be fasting, the day of Eid of the week. So that's what the scholars they mention. Yes. So the first brother is asking if someone missed the 6 did his qada of Ramadan because he missed, but he didn't get to do 6 days Shawwal. Inshallah, he can do it by fasting 3 days every month. So inshallah. So another way for him out. And also his niyyah, have attention that if he had the ability to fast 6 days, he would have done it. But because of this. So that's why some of the scholars say that he can still do it the 6 days and later do the Ramadan. Because a lot of the people say that means some people, maybe they're never going to get the 6 days of Shawwal. His whole life he'll be missing most of his life. So that angle, the other opinion is there. But let's say someone couldn't, wanted to do the Ramadan first, inshallah Allah will reward him with his niyyah. But also 3 days every month will also get him to fast the whole year. Bi-idhnillah ta'ala. Yes. Yes. Good. Yeah. So any fard salah. So we said any fard fast or fast which is recommended specifically. You have to have the niyyah the night before or before the Fajr. As for Sawmun, we said nafil mutlaq. Nafil mutlaq means there is nothing special specifically. You're not going for Shawwal or you're not going for Monday, Thursday. You're not doing any of this. You just want to fast because I feel like fasting. You can start in the middle of the day. So the scholars say if it's a specific fast or if it's fard fast, make sure you have your niyyah before the Fajr, just because that's when you have to start. So whenever you have to start, that's when you have your niyyah. So nafil mutlaq, you can start in the middle of the day, so that's when you start your niyyah. And again, in most cases, people they plan ahead of time to do their fast. But this is nafil mutlaq. I'm just saying someone just wants to fast today because they feel like it or they found no food like this. Question says, is it permissible to have multiple niyyahs for 2 rak'ah nafil? Yes, you can have multiple niyyahs. And this we covered before, how and the rules of combining between them. Alright, so you should look into the different niyyahs. But the idea is that some of them which are general and that which is specific can be combined. Like to 2 rak'ahs of Fajr before Fajr and Tahiyyat al-Masjid. You can combine those two. طيب إن شاء الله end with this much. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.